This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Good Monday afternoon. Welcome aboard. They call it a vote-a-rama, and it's underway in the U.S. Senate. Lawmakers there are debating amendments to President Trump's multi-trillion-dollar spending bill, which he hopes to get passed by the 4th of July. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders is a definite no vote.
President Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill is the most dangerous piece of legislation in the modern history of our country.
South Dakota Republican Mike Rounds.
If we don't get this done, there is an automatic tax increase coming at the end of the year. I know that there's parts in it that some of us will say I'd rather not have it in, or I'd rather have something different. But the big picture is America is better off with this bill in law than if we did not do it.
The self-entitled Big Beautiful Budget Bill extends the 2017 Trump tax cuts and boosts funding for defense and border security. Correspondent Ryan Nobles has more from Capitol Hill.
The bill is a work in progress. The goal, though, is to get everyone on the same page by the end of the week.
Critics fear the spending package endangers Medicaid as well as food stamps and could lead to the closure of rural hospitals. Two-term Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina is calling it quits. The GOP lawmaker says he will not seek re-election next year after butting heads with President Trump on the budget bill. Political analyst Larry Sabato.
Tillis has had it. This has happened before. You either agree with Trump and go along with what he wants, and you do so enthusiastically, or you become the enemy.
Tillis is one of just two Republicans who voted against the advancement of the president's tax cut plan. Rand Paul of Kentucky was the other. Ambushed in Idaho, the manhunt is over with for the sniper who shot 3 firefighters in the mountains yesterday. Cops say this guy set a brush fire near Coeur d'Alene to lure first responders. Local Sheriff Bob Norris.
We do believe that he started it, and it was totally intentional. This was a total ambush. These firefighters did not have a chance.
Police found a rifle near the body of the sniper. Former homicide detective Brian Foley.
Look at 2012 in Webster, New York, a very similar type of situation. The guy set his house on fire and his car on fire. He shot 4 firefighters upon their arrival, fatally killing 2. This is a very eerily similar situation.
300 law enforcement personnel took part in the manhunt on Canfield Mountain in northwestern Idaho. A small airplane crashed yesterday in eastern Ohio, claiming 6 lives. Howland County Fire Chief Ray Pace says the Cessna went down in the backyard of a home.
This is an extremely tragic situation, but it could have been worse. Yes, there were 3 residential houses in a pretty close proximity to the plane.
The plane was headed for Bozeman, Montana when it crashed just minutes after takeoff from the Youngstown Warren Regional Airport. 4 passengers and 2 crew members were killed. U.S.-China trade relations could impact the availability of fireworks this 4th of July. That's because more than 95% of the world's fireworks come from China.
The timing of the tariffs couldn't have hit at a worse time. It's creating a supply chain problem.
Julie Heckman is executive director of the American Pyrotechnics Association. She says fireworks are also costing more this year because of the tariffs. The most prestigious tennis tournament in the world is underway at Wimbledon.
Wimbledon is the oldest tennis tournament in the world, dating back to 1877, and remains the only Grand Slam still played on grass courts. It's the 3rd major of the year and known for several key traditions, including the all-white dress code and the eating of strawberries and cream, a long-standing tradition symbolizing the beginning of summer.
Sports reporter Erica Herskowitz at the All England Club in southwest London. By the way, 35 Americans are competing at Wimbledon this year. That's the most since 1999. Texas Senator Ted Cruz wants to save AM radio. He's sponsoring a bill that would make sure it remains available in all new vehicles.
When other forms of communications go down, AM radio is consistently the most resilient to help people get out of harm's way.
Earlier this year, 8 major automakers announced plans to strip AM radio from cars and trucks. There's concern that AM radio might interfere with new safety technology. Still to come on the Noon Report for Monday, Ride for Roswell. It's deadline day in PA and a digital detox for smartphone addicts.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams, tracking a few thunderstorms that'll be popping this afternoon and tonight. I'll have forecast details up in 10.
All right, Kevin, we'll see you then. In the meantime, let's check the stories making news across New York and Pennsylvania. Today is the deadline for Pennsylvania politicians to reach a deal on the more than $50 billion state budget. For the third year in a row, lawmakers are expected to miss the deadline. Without a state spending plan in place, the Commonwealth would lose some of its ability to pay vendors, pay counties, and pay public schools. The state would still, however, be able to cover Medicaid costs, issue unemployment checks, and ensure that police remain on patrol and state prisons remain open. With summer now officially here, health experts are warning about the dangers of leaving children alone in hot cars.
We all think that, we would never forget our children with us. And as precious as they are to us, for our brains, we go into autopilot mode.
Emily Thomas with Kids and Car Safety says already this year, 9 children have died after being left alone in hot vehicles.
Oftentimes, these cases occur when there is a change in routine. Parents or caregivers are sleep deprived and they're stressed, which is very typical.
She says even when it's not that hot outside, temperatures inside vehicles can rise to dangerous levels.
We did testing on a 60-degree day, and within 1 hour, the inside of the vehicle got to be over 100 degrees.
To prevent tragedy, Thomas suggests placing a personal item in the back seat of your car or truck.
Whether it's your jacket or your purse, a laptop bag, something of yours that at the end of the trip you have to go to the back seat to go retrieve.
Last year, nearly 40 children nationwide died from being left alone in hot cars. Pennsylvania Congressman Scott Perry is giving mixed reviews to President Trump's so-called big, beautiful budget bill. The conservative Republican from Central PA is worried about the debt incurred by the spending package.
If the Senate piles on more debt, that's going to be a problem for me and my vote. And so that's one of the things I'm looking at.
The spending package being debated in the Senate right now must be reconciled with a House version before it can move on to the president's desk. 2 women who've accused former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo of sexual harassment are now calling on the state comptroller to stop paying his legal bills. Under state law, New York reimburses public officials for the legal fees they incur during criminal investigations. Charlotte Bennett is one of Cuomo's accusers. She's calling for legislation that would turn off the tap on Cuomo's legal defense.
This is critical legislation that would provide essential protections for survivors to come forward, for workers to come forward.
A spokesperson for Cuomo says people have a right to defend themselves against false accusations. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro is among the top Democratic candidates for president in 2028. A new Emerson College survey has him tied with New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for 4th place on the list of possible contenders. Former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is first, followed by former Vice President Kamala Harris and California Governor Gavin Newsom. A byway project is underway in upstate New York to honor Harriet Tubman and her work on the Underground Railroad. The famous abolitionist helped free dozens of slaves during the Civil War.
A lot of residents aren't really aware of the full connection that Harriet Tubman has to New York, as well as stops on the Underground Railroad within the state.
Historian Danielle Lewis-Jones says the byway project began a couple of years ago. Now, if approved, it would stretch more than 500 miles from Buffalo to New York City.
We are doing a road trip similar to what a scenic byway is, right? So we're driving the byway going from Buffalo to Rochester to Auburn into New York City, getting feedback from all of the various places that the byway could go through.
Tubman is buried in Auburn, New York, though cities like Buffalo and Rochester were also crucial to her work on the Underground Railroad. The 169th annual Big Butler Fair continues today in Prospect, Pennsylvania. The Butler County event, billed as the largest agricultural exposition in all of western Pennsylvania. It features fireworks, carnival rides, demolition derbies, concerts, and truck pulls. More than 100,000 people are expected to visit the Big Butler Fair through this coming Saturday. We'll pause for sports next. It's the 2-minute drill on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob Aaron Judge was at it again, hitting two-run home runs to lead the Yankees to a 12-5 win over the Athletics. That gave New York the series victory. They have now won 3 of 4. The Pirates swept the Mets in dominating fashion with a 12-1 thumping. Over the 3-game sweep, the Buccos outscored the Amazons 30-4. Yesterday, O'Neal Cruz was the hitting star, blasting 2 home runs and driving in 4. Both Tommy Pham and Ke'Bryan Hayes drove in a pair in the rout. The Phillies won the rubber game of their series with the Braves, picking up a 2-1 victory. Ranger Suarez went 7 innings, struck out 8 to pick up his 7th win of the season. Checking out other scores in the Bigs, the O's bested the Rays 5-1. The Bo Sox lost a 5-3 decision to the Blue Jays. In 12, Seattle topped Texas 6-4. The Tigers shut out the Twins 3-0. Cincy edged San Diego 3-2. In 11 innings, the Rockies defeated the Brewers 4-3. Arizona fell to Miami 6-4. The Cards shut out Cleveland 7-0. Houston also won by a shutout 2-0 over the Cubs. LA beat KC 5-1. The White Sox 5-2 winners against the Giants. And the Nats took 11 innings to come out on top of the Angels 7-4. They ran the Quaker Stake 400 at Echo Park Speedway in Georgia yesterday, and Chase Elliott is the one celebrating. He led a total of 41 laps, including the all-important last one to take the checkered flag. Brad Keselowski second, Alex Bowman third. Tyler Reddick and Eric Jones rounded out the top 5 in the first round of the inaugural in-season challenge. That is a look at sports.
All right, Randy, thank you very much. And still to come on the Noon Report, a Monday edition. Ambushed in Idaho, U.S. Senate vote-a-rama, and help for those addicted to their cell phone.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. Back in March, Chris Elston, known as Billboard Chris, was detained in Australia for protesting the harm done to children in service of radical gender ideology. And then in early June, he, along with Lois McClatchy Miller, a senior legal communications officer for the Alliance Defending Freedom International, were detained in Belgium. They were simply standing in a public space, offering to talk to anyone interested about the realities of transgender treatments, wearing billboards that stated, quote, "Children cannot consent to puberty blockers," and, quote, "Children are never born in the wrong body." Though they called the cops to ask for protection from harassment, they were told to remove the signs or face arrest. After being detained and strip searched, they were released without charge. Now, thought and speech has not always been treated this way in the West. Because the West was deeply influenced by Christian consensus, citizens largely enjoyed the liberty, to various degrees, to challenge dominant paradigms and ideologies. That liberty is, based on what we are seeing in Belgium and Britain and in other nations, on quite shaky ground from both state and institutional pressures. In some places, just praying to yourself can be considered unruly protest. Recently, Lila Rose of Live Action shared the story of Naomi Best, a therapy student at Santa Clara University, an ostensibly Roman Catholic school in California. As part of her coursework, the university insisted that therapy students should view extreme pornography and share their own sexual history. When she asked for the same exemption that's regularly granted to Muslim students, The university refused. When she described what had happened to her in the pages of the Wall Street Journal, Best was kicked out of the program. As she pointed out, and I quote, "If we don't have a set of therapists with diverse worldviews and with tolerance for people with diverse worldviews, we will alienate people who need psychological care, and we will cause more harm than good," end quote. Totalitarian states like East Germany and Soviet Russia would guarantee its citizens the freedom of worship, but then levy fierce and often violent penalties for spreading that religious belief outside the church walls. You see, in those countries, the freedom of conscience was only the freedom to believe in one's own heart and one's own head, and maybe one's own house of worship. Worldview diversity was never something to be allowed in the public square. Now, the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution guaranteed more. In just 45 words, it protects conscience rights that are public. Thus, nonsensical campus chants like speech is violence or silence is violence are, in law, separated from actual violence. The founders wanted a country in which citizens could think and worship as they believed, but could also assemble together and take those beliefs out into the wider world. Both Belgium and Britain, which by the way is currently debating whether saying things that offend Islam should be illegal, could use something like this written down in law just about now. Now, of course, all freedoms, including our rights of conscience, have limits. In the United States, that limit is not one's own head or own heart, but real harm that's done to another. The First Amendment is a bulwark against speech police, and it's one of the Founding Fathers' greatest legacies. It's a structured freedom. It's part of our inheritance, an inheritance shaped by the Christian view of humanity, recognized as both sacred and sinful. And yet, it's a legacy that can never last if people are not actually willing to express their deeply held beliefs and then defend the right to do so. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
All right, John, thank you very much. Let's take things outside next. Meteorologist Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life weather forecast for this afternoon. Sun and clouds, a couple of thunderstorms and showers in parts of central and western Pennsylvania and western New York. High temperatures ranging in the 80s to near 90, more humid than of late. A couple of scattered showers and thunderstorms in the area tonight and tomorrow, otherwise variable cloudiness and muggy. Low tonight, mid-60s and low 70s. High tomorrow, mid-70s to low 80s. And mostly sunshine on Wednesday with high temperatures in the low to mid-80s.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin. This is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm your host, Bob Price. Great to have you with us today. Let's check what's happening Monday, the 30th of June, the last day of the month. The U.S. Senate has begun debate on President Trump's self-entitled Big Beautiful Budget Bill. Here's some of what today's vote-a-rama sounded like.
Republicans are about to pass the single most expensive bill in U.S. history.
This bill would be a betrayal to our economic future.
It's a big, beautiful bill if you believe in cutting people's taxes, securing the border, having a strong military, and controlling government spending.
Some high-stakes drama on the Hill today, that's for sure. Critics say the Trump budget endangers Medicaid and food assistance programs. Supporters argue it will save the average American family of four about $10,000 in taxes. President Trump is hoping for final passage by the 4th of July. The manhunt is over for a sniper in Idaho who set a brush fire in the mountains in order to lure first responders. The local sheriff says it was a difficult situation for all involved.
When you have an environment where you don't know where the bullets are coming from because of the trees and the shrubbery and what have you, it is daunting for police officers.
Cops found a rifle near the body of the sniper who shot and killed two firefighters and wounded a third. The Democratic socialist who wants to be the next mayor of New York City says billionaires should not exist. That far-left rhetoric from 33-year-old Zohran Mamdani is not sitting well with President Trump.
Whoever's mayor of New York is going to have to behave themselves, or the federal government is coming down very tough on them financially.
Mamdani won the Democratic primary for mayor last week.
I used to say we will never have a socialist in this country. No, but we'll have a communist. I mean, he's a communist and going to be mayor of New York.
Political analyst Janelle King says Mamdani's agenda is dangerous, but not unexpected.
It makes sense when you're talking about individuals who have been socialized in the socialist agenda.
The current mayor of New York, Eric Adams, is seeking re-election as an independent in the fall. A double rescue at sea after a child on a Disney cruise fell overboard near Fort Lauderdale. Crew members rescued that little girl and her father after he jumped into the water to try and save her. The Disney Dream was cruising the waters between the Bahamas and Florida on its way back to port in Fort Lauderdale. It is not clear how that child fell from the fourth deck, which has plexiglass safety barriers. It's opening day at Wimbledon, and athletes are bound to be hot under the collar for real this year. That's because temperatures are expected to nudge 90 at the All England Club on the outskirts of London. This spectator from Scotland is feeling it.
Yeah, well, I'm struggling because I'm from Inverness, so it never gets this warm up north. So it's about 20 degrees warmer than I'm used to, and I'm sunburnt all over.
It hit a record high of 115 today in southern Spain. That European heat wave is expected to last until Wednesday. One of the all-time greats in professional basketball is coming back for a record 23rd season.
The win! It's gone! LeBron James at the buzzer!
The NBA's all-time leading scorer will return in the fall for the LA Lakers. LeBron James turns 41 years old in December. You're tuned into the Noon Report for Monday on Family Life. This is Mission Pulse. Mondays during the Noon Report, we spotlight ministries that are making a difference. This week, we're talking to Brad Huddleston with Brad Huddleston Ministries in Virginia about his effort to wean people off social media. Here's some of our conversation. Well, it is such an honor to have you on. We've spotlighted you several times on our radio station to talk about what every family is dealing with these days, and that is just this overwhelming onslaught of social media in our faces 24/7. You've written a book on this. In fact, you've written a couple books on this, Digital Cocaine and Digital Rehab. I just want to start today, Brad, by asking you, when it comes to social media, how bad is it in terms of hours a day we are spending staring at screens?
Well, the numbers on that vary by country. By far, the worst country for that is South Africa. They're logging somewhere between 11 and 12 hours a day staring at screens. That would include social media and other activities. Here in America, it's right around 7 hours and 30 minutes. Teenagers, of course, spending about that much time. Parents, a little bit less. Australia, where I spend quite a bit of my time, they're the same. They're way up there as well. So for my dissertation, what I would like to do is do a pilot study in New York, do a case study in Australia, and take that data, see what emerges, and then create a global curriculum to help people detox. And so out of this data that emerges, and of course with a biblical worldview, the end game is to create this curriculum. So we're finally seeing, Bob, the needle move. It's been a long slog. I've been writing and speaking about this since about 2010 or 11.
Yeah.
And we're just now starting to see it's getting so bad around the world with this mental health crisis, a global mental health crisis brought on by all the digital saturation.
Yeah. When you talk about a digital detox, you're pretty adamant that you got to go cold turkey here. It's not a question of, okay, just in moderation. Why won't that approach work when it comes to social media addiction?
Well, when you talk about digital addiction, you're talking about dopamine levels on par with heroin and cocaine. And now that's literal. That's medical. That's why these devices are so addictive. So when you talk about a detox, a parent, and they often do this, and Bob, these are not evil parents. These are well-meaning parents. They're rational. They're loving. They, for years, have said this: if you will behave yourself to their children during the week, do your chores, do your assignments, homework, and all of that, on Saturday, I'll give you, 3 hours of whatever you want to do on your screen. Not anything immoral, but your video games and so forth, Minecraft and that. But from a medical perspective, what I have to gently tell them is that cocaine is bad on Saturday, just like it is on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And so they're well-meaning, and they're trying to be loving and fair and limit and balance and all of that. But it just doesn't work because of the medical reasons of too much dopamine. So what we're about with the detox, you have to do exactly what a cocaine or heroin addict would do. You can't limit your heroin use. You have to cut it off. Cold turkey, you're just going to have to lop it off, and then you have to go for an extended period of time. 4 to 6 weeks is what the data shows will, for the most part, handle the withdrawal symptoms, and then you have to develop new habits.
Yeah, I think really like we do with cigarettes, there's going to be Surgeon General warning labels on it eventually. We've already seen countries like Australia take action here, banning minors. We've seen even states, I think yours is the latest, Virginia, enact these cell phone bans at school. In New York, their ban will take effect in the fall, a bell-to-bell cell phone ban at school to get away from the anxiety, depressions, the suicidal ideation that's come with digital addiction. Do you think that these sorts of policies that are put in place by governments are realistically going to have any kind of a positive effect here when it comes to overall mental health?
Well, it won't do anything for a detox. What it will do, after the children have been and the students have been off of the phones for, let's say, approximately 3 hours, then their attention spans, for the most part, will come back. So the first 3 periods, they're still going to have attention deficits because on their way to school, whether it be on the bus or their parents drive them, they're jacked up on dopamine, and that's going to take a while to settle down. So the actual culprit is at home. Yes, it's a good start, and the school should ban it, no question about it, and it's going to help. But the cure is going to be to have them come to school with normal levels of dopamine for learning and not from entertainment. So until the parents take the devices away and strictly forbid them in the mornings completely so that they come to school, if you will, with a blank slate, the problem is going to persist the first part of the day.
Yeah.
And then as they get closer to the bell to ring, because this is bell to bell, they're going to start to anticipate, and I believe not concentrate at all, because the only thing they're going to think about is, well, in 1 hour I get my phone back, in 20 minutes I get my phone back, in 50. So it's this vicious cycle where the problem really needs to be cured at home, and then the school backs that up with their policy. So I think we've done it in reverse, but I'll take it.
Yeah, we'll take any bit we can get. But I just kind of want to bring this full circle because, Brad, I know there are more than 1 or 2 people out there right now saying, yes, I want to do this digital detox. What would you advise as far as first steps? How would you point them in the right direction?
For the extreme cases where there are suicidal ideation, self-harm accompanied with it, we run into this a lot. If it's really that bad, you really need to call a counselor and someone that's, and I would strongly recommend biblically based, and then get some help from Christian circles. But for the average person, even though they're addicted, they can handle a detox. But those who did it in community succeeded far better than those who tried it alone. This is where getting involved with a church is so powerful, where you humble yourself and you go, hey, anybody want to do life together and do this detox together? Because every home is struggling just about, if not all of them. Even the teenagers, Bob, this is what touched my heart. The biggest resistance, as you can imagine, are teenagers. But the ones who said, you know what, my social circles are in this church, and because all of the parents were making us do the detox, it was relatively easy because all of my friends were doing it together.
Yeah.
Draw on each other's strengths and do it in community. You have a much better chance of long-term success when you do that.
Amen. And just in closing, you mentioned this curriculum that you're in the process of developing. How soon do you think it'll be before that's published?
Well, it can't come soon enough, can it?
There we go.
Now, listen,
not to put any pressure on, right?
Now, if I could just be humble enough and bold enough to ask this audience for prayer, that will determine how quickly I can get it out. So I've doubled up on some classes to try to rush this. I took some time off this summer to expedite this because of the need, and we'll get it released. And I'm hoping sometime in the first quarter of next year. That's my prayer.
That is Brad Huddleston with Brad Huddleston Ministries for this week's edition of Mission Pulse. Mondays, during the Noon Report, we spotlight the ministries that are making a difference where you live, across the country, and around the world. And you can download today's edition of Mission Pulse online anytime. Just look for the Mission Pulse tab on our podcast page at familylife.org.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. Well, we're tracking a cold front coming in from the Midwest. Ahead of it, Certainly have a warm, humid day underway today, but that front's going to serve as the mechanism to spark a few showers and thunderstorms. In the wake of the front, the activity will fade, and by midweek, we're back into sunshine. Our call for this afternoon, sun and clouds, a couple of thunderstorms and showers in parts of central and western Pennsylvania and western New York. High temperatures ranging in the 80s to near 90, more humid than of late. A couple of scattered showers and thunderstorms in the area tonight and tomorrow, otherwise variable cloudiness and muggy. Low tonight, mid-60s and low 70s. High tomorrow, mid-70s to low 80s. And mostly sunshine on Wednesday with high temperatures in the low to mid-80s.
All right, all in all, not a bad 4th of July week. Thank you, Kevin. And finally, at noon today, over 8,000 people took part in the 30th annual Ride for Roswell charity bike race. Happened over the weekend in Buffalo, New York. And that fundraiser raised over $6 million this year for cancer research at Roswell Park.
More people alive today that are cured of their disease because of the funds that are raised here at this ride.
Dr. Candace Johnson is the president and CEO of Roswell Park. Those who took part had their own personal reasons for giving back the way they did.
I'm riding because my mom has stage 4 cancer, and I'm riding for everybody that needs help.
I'm riding in honor of my sister Kayla, who's a cancer survivor and now also a nurse at Roswell.
I am riding for my dad, who got diagnosed with leukemia this past fall, and my friend Ian.
My aunts, all 3 of them have cancer, and they fought it and they beat it.
The bikers telling WIVB that everybody sooner or later will be personally impacted by cancer.
So a 2-time cancer survivor here.
I'm a colon cancer survivor, and my dad's battling bladder cancer.
We're riding in memory of my dad.
We're riding for my mom. It means so much. We've had so much support from all of our friends and family.
I just want to help everybody who's suffering right now.
What a great event that was. Ride for Roswell in Buffalo. Now, since it began 3 decades ago, more than $80 million has been raised for cancer research at Roswell. The bikers on Saturday chose between 9 different routes, ranging from 4-mile bike rides to bike rides that spanned over 100 miles. And that's our world, the world we live in, Monday, June 30th. I'm Bob Price, Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.